Anyway, the laptops are fried. I'm on my desktop. My desktop doesn't have a camera on it.
Mm-hmm. No worries.
Yeah, it's like crap.
If you do click on, if you see there, Rick, in the links, or not the links, the chat. In the chat there, I've got the very first thing that I shared there is actually, if you click on that, it'll pull up the pop-up chat, and that'll show you who is who is watching soon.
I don't see that.
Wait, it's over.
Okay, I see some chat that you sent me. I see Tattered Board joined the group. That was you guys. Is that what you're asking me to look at?
I will just put it in there again.
There you go. Now I see a link.
Okay, it might have been. Yeah, I guess I need to wait until you guys are all in before I share that in the future. I'm apparently chatting with only myself when I do that. That is a hollow feeling.
Wow. Okay, so now I have another window that's come up.
Yep, and that's just the chat itself. That'll be like people are watching live. So we are currently broadcasting live.
Awesome.
No F-bombs, TC. No. Apparently nothing from TC. Maybe he's trying to work on video. I don't know.
Is he there? I can see his face in my imagination.
We got Murr, and it looks like I'm not sure. Maybe
that was entertaining.
Zar X81 is joining us. Maybe he's still there. Hopefully he's still there. Anyhow, you gentlemen that are here in the chat, good to hear from you again, Murr. It's always a pleasure. One day I'm going to make it down there to Dice Tower Con, and I'm going to play Cosmic Encounter with you at some point.
They're posting pictures of Pandemic Rising Tide on BGG.
Pandemic Splotter, you mean?
Oh, is that what that is?
It's the one that's designed by the Splotter guys.
Oh, so that means everyone who hates Pandemic will start liking it now? This is we'll have a blank box on the back. That's why we'll be blank on the back. That's important.
It'll certainly break my buddy Andy, who loves all things Splotter. It'll break his brain because having a Splotter guy design something that's clearly for the plebs.
The plebs.
Yeah, the plebs. So Andy will be just broken, I think. I don't know if he will be able to continue on after this game comes out.
Oh.
I'm going to try to get him to play it. And he'll probably just make some joke about how he'll play it.
Are these pictures coming out of Essence Bill?
I think that's what you're referring to, right, TC?
Yeah, I think. Hang on, I'm still getting some issues with my computer here. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Rick, did you get the Hangout Toolbox? Did you see how that installs, like where you add apps in the Hangout Toolbox?
No, I didn't see that.
If you'd like, if you want it to look, because you see when I talk, it kind of says my name and has that little bar at the bottom. If you'd like something like that, we can do that. Otherwise, we can just go with it.
Yeah, that might be. Before I break something, that might be good.
You can put a sign around your neck that says who you are. You have to write it backwards, though.
Is this what we're trying to do? We're trying to put a banner on me. Is that what we're?
That's what I was going to say. I mean, if
we're trying to label you right off the bat,
TC, if you only do a picture like TC is, then we can't. So Murr is recognizing you, Rick, but he, just like me, had never seen your face before. He'd only seen your beautiful hands.
Hang on. Is that better? Just point it at the game.
Could you squat down below your screen and just every time you talk, just hold your hand out like this?
Let's do this.
Yeah.
We're going to dictate performances now?
I need one of these, those big foam hands that you take to the ball game. Put it on my head.
Oh, I see you got both editions of Robinson Crusoe back there.
Oh, he's got them set up, yeah.
Wow. I was going to play it this morning, but I played Legend of the Five Rings instead.
Of course, that's your life right now.
I know, but I think we're gonna try it tonight because I did rent a copy from our board game store. So you guys sell my group on it, or at least sell me. Well, I should play this as Civil Legend of the Five Rings.
Oh, have you not played Robinson Crusoe?
I've seen it played. I've seen someone.
You see, this is so thematic, man. Yeah, if you see, we got another chatter who's got the old version like me. You see my old version right here. Ricky, we can't all have both.
You've got like second edition Z-Man version.
It's the Z-Man version. I think the second edition Z-Man version, the only difference between first and second was the size of the box, right? Isn't the first edition's a regular square box from Portal?
This is the first edition.
The first edition was the Z-Man, if I remember right.
Portal actually put one out before Z-Man. That's the first edition that was really available in the United States, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, this is first edition. So this is the first game I pre-ordered in my gaming career. Every game before was. So this was the first one that I sat and waited for. And, so yeah, it was released in. I got it in the October, I think. I got it in the October. So. Yeah, I was pretty pleased. And one of the first videos I got out on Box of Delights was Robinson Crusoe, because I only started Box of Delights in 2012. And that was the year of Mage Knight and Robinson Crusoe.
Yeah, so Mage Knight came around the same time, if I remember right.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, that was, I think that was, when I was looking at Robinson, there was a couple of games. I was looking for a game of this theme, and there was another game called Castaway. I don't know what happened to that.
Was that out at the same time? Castaways?
Castaways. It was Passport Game Studios, and it was more Euro, and it was a little bit. I think it was semi-co-op, or maybe it was.
It was semi-co-op. Like I would say, dude, the difference between it and Robinson Crusoe is that game is virtually it's virtually impossible to replay it. I played that game once and just hated it. It was very much like you had to like go on adventures. You had to roll a bunch of dice every time you went on an adventure. And it was one of those buckets of dice feeling games. It really, really upset me because I had already played Robinson Crusoe, and I think that one came out shortly afterwards, and it did not in any way deliver on what I was hoping for. I don't know what I expected. I mean, I already had Robinson Crusoe. Why did I even try that?
Right. I didn't play it, so I can't comment. But I'm kind of glad I plumped for this one, Robinson Crusoe.
Holy cow! I think my little Xbox cam's gonna work.
Nice. Yes, it is probably the blurriest cam I've ever seen, but at least it's something, dude.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is my old Xbox 360 camera thing that I just grabbed right quick. What? You know.
It should work okay.
Yeah.
Just really quick, guys, I need you guys all to understand I've got to go at quarter till here. So we got about an hour and a little bit less than an hour and a half to get the podcast done. Unfortunately, I had a commitment that went away and then went back. It was just weird. I've got to go to a dance. I've got to chaperone a dance at the high school I work at. It's nice. Going to be a blast. It really is.
You can tell them stories about Robinson Crusoe when you get there.
That's right, man.
I'm sure they'll be well up for that.
They're going to be doing it's Day of the Dead themed. I'm a Spanish teacher, so it's Day of the Dead themed, and they'll be doing face painting and things. And if I can make it out of this without getting my face painted like a skull, I'll consider it a win.
So Joe, I keep losing you on the old video. I don't know if that's my Wi-Fi or yours, but
you mean kind of lags a bit?
Yeah.
It'll probably kind of do that intermittently. With the amount of bandwidth that I have is a little bit more than the video can really handle, but I'll be there for bits and pieces here and there. I can usually sneak in a few middle fingers whenever you say something that upsets me without my video uploading. So we try to keep it PG.
Yeah, we got in trouble last time we didn't.
That was UTC.
It was all me. I was like, I know I beeped that out. Oops.
Oops. It happens. We won't do that again. All right, gentlemen, are we cool with getting started here?
Let's go, rock and roll.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, I've lost you again.
Hello and welcome to The Long View, a podcast in which we take an in-depth look at the games that have stood the test of time. And today we have a pretty big game with a pretty big name in gaming. And that man is Ricky Royal of Box of Delights, whose history in gaming stems from having the most beautiful hands there is, as he tells you how to play extremely complicated games, such as the one we're talking about today, Robinson Crusoe, as well as Mage Knight, which is where I originally had heard your soothing voice and seen your beautiful hands. Ricky, how are you doing today?
Hey, Joe, thank you for that introduction. That's fabulous. And hi, TC. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You've got the face today. The hands couldn't make it. So thanks for having me here. You still got the voice. So one of us will be asleep before the hour is through, I'm sure.
I just want to see the hands. Can you hold them up?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. All right, I feel better.
There you go.
I know those hands.
Oh.
Oh boy.
They're
Well, we
asking
got
for
a few
jazz
people
hands.
joining us here in the chat too, and it sounds like they want to see jazz hands. We've already gotten a request for jazz hands.
Jazz hands? Okay. Sweet. Do it.
Oh, and that voice you hear there with the blurry video, if you're watching, is my co-host TC Reed out in Portland. How are you doing today, TC?
Well, I finally got a computer up and going. That's something. And just for people who need to know, if you have an Xbox 360 cam, it will work on your computer if push comes to shove, but you have to manually focus it. So pardon the kerfuffle here.
Yep. So he kind of see TC, kind of can't. Yeah. And I am Joe Sallin, one of the co-hosts of The Long View as well. You can check out The Long View on Board Game Geek. We're Guild 1325, I believe, and TC's got some amazing intro stuff that I'll save for that. Anyhow, we are sponsored by Game Surplus, so go check them out at gamesurplus.com. You'll find some of the newest things coming out from Essen. Carmen's over there right now, and he was just texting out pictures of hockey games and his heavy game meetup out there with Heavy Cardboard, also sponsored by The Long View. So anyway, check them out, gamesurplus.com. They got some really great games, and they'll have a few games from Essen that you will not be able to find in other places. So that's gamesurplus.com. We are today going to be talking about Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island, which is designed in 2012, well, published in 2012, and designed by Ignacy Trzewiczek of Portal Games, originally published by Portal Games himself, his own company, and then was imported to the version I have by Z-Man, and then recently has had a new edition. So, Ricky, from what I understand, your history with Robinson Crusoe goes back very, very far, as into day one, maybe, and maybe Robinson Crusoe, in a way, helped to get the Box of Delights that you do, the YouTube videos that you do, showing people how to play games, started.
It was one of the early ones, yeah, Joe. It was. So it was one of the first games the first game I ever pre-ordered. So it was the first game that I sat and waited for. This was before Kickstarter, so it was it was exciting to get this game. It was anticipated, and it was everything I hoped it would be. And I think it was as much to do with Ignacy and his enthusiasm for the design and the way that he engaged with us as our prospective purchasers and enticing us to love his game. So. Ignacy is somebody who I've been watching closely over the years, and obviously his first game was probably the Stronghold. 2009 was Stronghold, and then
yes.
But I think Robinson Crusoe was probably the game that put him on the map as a designer. It was probably his big hit that's going to stand the test of time. Yeah, exactly. He did Prêt-à-Porter, and 51st State is another game of his that. I love Prêt-à-Porter and I love 51st State. It was my favorite two-player game for a long time. But I think Robinson Crusoe was the game that showed me what cooperative games could be. And indeed, on Box of Delights, co-ops appear quite a lot because it's just me most of the time on my channel. It's easy to to demonstrate games that can be played solo or cooperatively on my own, because I can do a full playthrough and demonstrate the game. And that's why, 2012 when I started was a big one for Mage Knight and Robinson Crusoe. They were big games of that year. And interestingly, I think Ignacy, one of the first blog posts he wrote that drew me in was him talking about his trip from Poland. He was going to a games convention in Czech Republic to see, and he met up with Vladimir Hakuil, who did Vlada, who did Mage Knight. And Ignacy talked about how he took this prototype Robinson Crusoe, his baby, with him and showed it to Vlada, and Vlada kind of destroyed it and told him what a crap design it was. And then Ignacy took it back and he led us through as his readers and talked about how Robinson became the game that we play today, and that kind of drew me in, that designer story. That's how I got hooked on Robinson from the beginning.
I'm right there with you. Ignacy is a big name in the industry, not only for the games he designs, but also for his transparency as a designer with his blog, and which has now had a book published that is literally just a book full of blog posts, I think in like hardcover, I believe by the name Board Games That Tell Stories. Does that sound close? Something close? Yeah, and there's two of them now. There's 2 books. Yeah. Okay.
They'll be up on my shelf somewhere.
I am familiar with the exact same post that you referenced when he took it to Vlada, and Vlada told him that it had issues for sure. And I think the main issue was that I think Vlada said that he didn't connect to the game because as soon as something went bad, he felt like the game was just over, because you got worse, your character got worse, and there was just nothing. So he said, it's too hard. There's no coming back from a bad turn. And I think that Ignacy took that. Yes, Vlada shredded his game, but he took it and he built the game up. And arguably, you could say that without that sort of an influence and that sort of a dedication to bettering your own product that Ignacy had, this game certainly would not be as high ranked as it is. I mean, with the glaring flaw, to me, that's great design. And you yourself are a designer, right, Ricky? So
I am now. I am now. Yes. Yeah, and Ignacy had a hand in that himself. I mean, I gave him one of my designs. I think I gave him a few of my designs to look at, and he's given me lots of good feedback. I was gonna say positive feedback, and it wasn't, but good feedback.
Did he shred you? Did he pull a Vlada on you there?
He did. He pulled the Vlada on me, but that's good. That's what you need. You need that. And just from like you say, how he's transparent with his thoughts on how he built his designs, and you can learn a lot from folks who have been through it. And it is a lot tougher than I imagined, but to design a game. But yeah, I have a game coming out with Victory Point Games. It's done the whole Kickstarter thing. So, but yeah, we won't talk about that today. But yeah, absolutely, he's been an inspiration.
We can talk about that for sure. We can talk about that when we you'll get your chance here, Ricky, to talk about that. I'm sure right now, people are really interested in hearing about that. I mean, I kind of want to hear your story too. Maybe to what degree Ignacy helped you and stuff. So I mean, yeah, we should have time for that. Yes, please.
Yeah, excellent. But he's absolutely and continues to be an inspiration. And the way he's built his company up as well. When you look at the industry as a whole, and the way it's grown with social media, I think, board gaming, because you guys are doing things like this, and it's reaching more and more people. And Ignacy is a man who has embraced that social media and the internet and reaching out to customers directly and letting people know about his games. That's the world we live in now, and that's the way to get to your market. And he's a champion at doing that, and I think that contributes massively to the success of Portal Games, definitely. So it was good to watch him dissect cooperative games and come up with Robinson Crusoe, because he started by saying, I mean, here's the thing, this theme, this game delivers so well is not a tricky theme. It's not a challenging theme. It's you know, if you say to someone you're stuck on a desert island, we can all imagine the story, right? We know what's going to happen, and Ignacy recognized that, and he recognized that, you know, people understand immediately what they expect from this game. They're going to, you know, build a shelter. They're going to search for food. They're going to, you know, they're going to face some challenges. So the theme wasn't difficult, but what makes this a good game is not just the way it delivers that, but the way he challenged what cooperative games were. I mean, we had, you know, we had very highly thematic cooperative games. In 2005 was Shadows over Camelot and Arkham Horror. 2008 was Pandemic, and then 2012 is Robinson Crusoe. And what, even after that length of time, what Ignacy did was said, what do I hate about cooperative games? And I'm going to put that right with Robinson Crusoe. And he did that, and he did that. And we can talk about how he did that, and you know, some of the mechanisms that make it still stand out as it's my #1 cooperative game. So definitely
over Mage Knight even, huh? Or
Mage Knight's a solo game. I don't want to share that with anybody. That's just for me. Sorry.
Oh, I can understand that. I mean, that's a game that definitely has a lot of things going on, and you got to trust people. You don't want anybody to ruin something like Mage Knight. I'm with you there.
And also, so, I'm that alpha player. So when I'm playing Mage Knight, I want Mage Knight, and the way how Vlada did Mage Knight and how Ignacy did Robinson, they're very different styles, because Mage Knight is a very technical game and it's very precise. Whereas Robinson is very story-driven, and that story-driven game lended itself very well to cooperative play. Whereas for Mage Knight, with this very precise play, this puzzle-solving aspect, it's very much the mechanics are everything in Mage Knight for me, I feel, and that's why it translated. Game. Yeah, and it translated into the Star Trek theme very easily, and it could do again. It encourages that alpha player to just take over and do their thing.
Any theme will do.
Yes, exactly.
Get out your case. Any theme will do.
But if you watch people play Robinson Crusoe, I mean, I'll happily play Robinson solo as well. But if it's a game, I'll happily. I'm not huge on co-op games, but I'll happily play cooperatively, because it engages people over the table to talk, and and try to have this story and build this story, and people laugh and joke, and you know, you're not necessarily, it's not challenging your brain to solve a problem. It's just saying, enjoy this story, sit back and enjoy it. And that's what Robinson does more than Mage Knight does.
But you've got a big comparison there. I mean, like, Ricky, that Mage Knight is, you know, how many games are there that are like that? I mean, there's very few. Arguably, the most recent release I can think of, Spirit Island. I'd really be interested to see if you have any thoughts about that, you know, when the time comes. But, you know, really, this is like the renaissance of cooperative games. And I think Robinson Crusoe and Mage Knight, having come out in the same year, if I'm not mistaken, right, or around the same time, within months of each other, right? You're talking about cooperative games really seeing, you know, more than just, you'd mentioned before, you've got like your Arkham Horror game, which is on this one end of the spectrum, where I would consider Arkham Horror, much like you've described, like you basically have to sit back and enjoy what you are doing, the spirit of what you are doing. TC is a big fan of Arkham Horror, and TC sounds to me like what you enjoy when you play Arkham Horror. Yes?
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of Arkham Horror, but that's just because I've played so many different iterations of that theme. Like right now, I'm like really hooked on that Arkham Horror, the card game, right now. But before that, it was Eldritch Horror. And before that, I really liked Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition. So yeah, it's weird. That Arkham Horror Files, as far as cooperative games goes, keeps like changing and changing and changing. So it's interesting to follow.
I generally
Yeah,
get
yeah.
branded a Euro gamer, and I enjoy Robinson Crusoe like you wouldn't believe. Like I've played this game so many times, so it definitely has something there that I see. Whereas like with Arkham Horror, that to me it just isn't nearly as engaging. I don't feel invested in what happens. I feel kind of like occasionally like I'm just like, well, it is what it is, and that certainly can happen in Robinson Crusoe. Don't get me wrong. Like the story, like it's a huge part of the game, but the mechanisms offer you enough control that I'm able to invest.
Mm. Yeah, Robinson Crusoe looks, when you watch people play, it looks like they're playing a Euro game. I mean, it's got that kind of, it's not strictly worker placement because you're not competing per se, but you're placing workers, you're doing action selection really, and you're managing resources, and it kind of feels like a Euro game as well as a thematic game. And Ignacy's brought them together very well. I mean, we're used to hybrid games these days, and that blurred line between what used to be Ameritrash and Euro, and now that line is more blurred, and Robinson did that very well too. But when I'd like to, I mean, I think the comparison between, say, Arkham Horror and Robinson Crusoe, and was one of the problems I think that Ignacy saw with cooperative games and games like Arkham Horror is the game's playing you in Arkham Horror, and it's messing with you and saying, you're following a story in Arkham Horror, and suddenly you're hit by a train, and like, hey, I was nowhere near the station. How did I get hit by a train? Whereas
you discovered
Robinson
an
says,
underwater colony in the desert.
Yeah,
okay.
It comes out of nowhere and hits you. But Robinson Crusoe tries to make these. It hits you just as hard, but it kind of does it. It kind of creeps up on you a little bit, rather than just out of nowhere.
It's fair, yeah. It's fair and it's cohesive. I would say it never feels like the story is interrupted by some impossibility. It's got continuity to the way that all the events fit in with this idea of surviving in a hostile environment. So, what do you think about the difficulty here, Ricky?
I think part of it is difficult. I mean, I think Ignacy said 80% success on Castaways Mission 1. No.
Yeah, that makes us all feel like we suck. That's what that does.
Yeah. No, I find that one of the hardest. One of the hardest. It's funny. It's the first introductory mission, and it's introductory because it throws all the rules at you and gives you everything you need to know, and it starts kind of simple because it doesn't have the complex scenarios built on top. But I still find it one of the hardest ones to win at. But I think the complexity is fine. You need that from a solitaire game, and that's the other thing. I think a lot of people don't like Robinson because it's hard, and they lose, and they want to win. And this is a game that is not about winning. It's about enjoying playing the game. It doesn't matter to me whether I win or lose this game. It's when I play 51st State in a 2-player game, I want to win the bloody thing. But when I play Robinson Crusoe, I just want to enjoy the ride, and so it doesn't matter if I'm losing all the time. I win quite a lot on Robinson because I've kind of figured things out, and I'm really keen to see more content come along. And Portal just this week have announced some news on that. So
oh yes, and that's I can't wait till we'll talk about that because I was super pumped when I saw your post on Facebook. With it being difficult, we've had some chat here with the guys have been saying, a game has to be difficult if it's cooperative. Otherwise, when you beat it, you don't feel like coming back. And I think that what you said, Ricky, goes along with that quite a bit, and my experiences as well. In a cooperative game, I will accept a loss much more readily and without complaining than I will in a competitive game. If a game like 51st State or, just any competitive game, let's say another worker placement game that involves something similar to this, like, say, Stone Age or something. If there's something in that game that specifically just, like I flip a card and I'm totally ruined because of it, I would be very frustrated. However, as Mur pointed out, the card that you read isn't just like you die. The card you read is, would you like some food? Great. eat the food, take a food cube, and put this little green token onto your belly. And don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll worry about that later if and when it comes up.
Yeah, exactly. All those bad events are, not all of them. It's not perfect. Ignacy didn't do a perfect job on it, but yeah, he called it this story building mechanism. The story builds, and it builds into this ultimate crescendo that sees you all die. But it builds. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. But TC, I mean, how did you find Arkham Horror? I think it's the same kind of difficulty.
Oh my goodness, how did I find Arkham Horror? Arkham Horror was like, I think I've told Joe this, but Arkham Horror was a birthday present to my wife because she liked the time frame on it. It was like 1950s.
How do you feel Arkham Horror compares difficulty-wise? What do you think about Arkham Horror's difficulty, TC?
Oh, goodness. Well, Arkham Horror's difficulty, the board game, is largely contingent on how many people play it. If you're playing that game with less people, you have to play more than one character, or you're going to go down in flames.
What do you think? What's your percent at succeeding? Would you say that it's 80% success?
Oh, goodness. 80%. I'd say about 20% success on that thing with all the expansions I have on that thing, with all the variability on that. It's a little different with the Arkham Horror card game because you can adjust the difficulty on that. And that's one of the things that makes it interesting for my group, because my wife likes playing the Arkham Horror card game just for the story. So we cranked that thing down to easy and we just experienced the story. My other group is sadistic and likes building decks and having it kick our butt. So we cranked that thing up to like some ridiculous thing. And yeah, it's almost two entirely different ways to play the game. But yeah. But as far as Arkham Horror, the board game is, yeah, it can be tremendously unforgiving. And with lower player counts, it's that much harder.
I would say a distinction I'd like to make here is that we do have cards that have events on them in both games, right? Event cards. And I think from a Euro game perspective, when I hear the term event cards, I'm not gonna lie, man, I kind of get like the cold sweats. I'm like, uh-oh, is this game gonna have something where I flip a card and it's like game over? You know, is it? I feel like the big difference here is that in the story that you're telling in like Arkham Horror, it's confined, like the specific cards are confined to like a specific deck that connects to a region, most likely. Or, you know, in Eldritch it's a region. In Arkham Horror, I think it's more connected to the actual town of Arkham. Does that sound correct, TC?
Yeah, it does sound as a large degree correct, because some of those cards are tied to locations and where you can get them. And yeah, certain locations will statistically throw up different cards, maybe, kind of.
Well, in any given game, you're usually going to be rifling through multiple cards at each location. And so when you do see the same card come up in a location, you know, it's the same event. And the story is kind of very set into like, you know, you're talking to this person, this is what happens, here are your possible results. And like, once you've heard that, you know, it's kind of like, it doesn't really fit in with the story. It feels kind of almost like there are all these like little side stories that don't feel cohesive as much to me into the main story at hand. You know, it feels like you've got an encounter and then it's over. Whereas with Robinson Crusoe, these things get kind of like written in between the lines of the story that your overarching story is telling. And it uses quite an innovative system of building these different, you've got a deck of like story cards. And could you, Ricky, kind of introduce our listeners that maybe haven't played Robinson Crusoe into like, you know, what specifically, you know, story-wise you can expect, and what does that story deck work like?
Yeah, sure. So I've grabbed some cards here just to give you an example of this story building mechanism. And you know, so you could go out, you're gathering food, and you gather food, and then you've chosen to do that. That's your action. As a player, you have an action. You're going to go gather some food. Your camp needs food. And what Ignacy says is your actions have consequences. So your consequences may be that, you know, you've gone out gathering and you draw a card, and here's a card. It's a good example, and it's one that we cite a lot, is mushrooms, right? So you've gone you've gone gathering food. You found some mushrooms on your way back to the camp. You guys are desperate for food, so this card is tempting you. It's saying, look, here's some mushrooms. You can either throw this away. You're going to walk past these mushrooms, forget about it. Don't have to worry about this card. No event happens. Or you can take these mushrooms back to camp, and everyone's hungry. They get some more food, and that's really helped your cause. You've got food. But what you do is you take this card. You've got your food. Great. We've done the job for this round. But then the second half, this is the bit that's going to come back and haunt you. This card gets shuffled into the event deck. So Arkham Horror's Mythos deck is just going to deliver something unexpected. Robinson Crusoe's event deck is going to deliver things that you kind of know are coming. You've had some mushrooms, and when this card turns up next day, you're all suffering from those mushrooms. They were a little bit poisonous, right? So, but you know it's coming, and this card says to you, you know, if you have a cure, if you've discovered the pot and you've found some herbs and you've built a cure, you can save yourselves from the bad stomach you're going to get when you eat these mushrooms. But so it's kind of twofold. You know this card, you can try and do something about it. You can preempt it, you can head it off, or you can just say, I'm not going to eat those mushrooms. We're going to suffer. We're going to go hungry tonight. Or you can take the chance, and you can take the chance on all suffering some wounds later on in the game. So it's this story building. It's a very clever idea, and it's all built around this idea that your actions have consequences. I'm not just going to run you over with a bus when you were nowhere near the road. I'm going to say, right, you guys want to go chopping down trees? Well, there's a chance that tree's going to fall on you. So here's another one. You've gone gathering and you found something in the bushes. You can either discard this card, I'm going to walk on by, or I get a starting end item card. I found some treasure. I found something that's going to help me. But and this is a nice little story. When this one comes back and haunts you, it says, and it's very simple. It just says, you look at the item, this thing that you found, and you wonder what happened to its owner, and it affects your morale. And it just says to you, somebody somewhere has lost this thing, and it makes you sad, and it hits your morale. And morale's a big resource in the game. So it's all these little stories, and these build over not very many rounds, 8 to 12 rounds or whatever. But every game, Ignacy's been very extravagant in his design. He's given us big decks of these things. So every game we may see half a dozen of these come up, but there's 25 to choose from. So you get lots of variable stories each time you play this game. It always feels different. So yeah, there's this wonderful story building narrative. And,
absolutely.
Consequences to your actions. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Certainly, yeah. I know you did a great job there telling us about, you walked us through an example, kind of the same thing that you would expect from a Ricky Royal YouTube video. That's I do go on. That was exactly what I was hoping for. I'm not trying to make fun. I just, I saw that sort of comparison. So when you do take an action, you're going to end up sometimes shuffling this card that you've, maybe got some sort of a positive effect from into your event deck. And then the event deck, you're going to flip up a card every round, and that's usually going to be like the round counter. But if you have a card that you've just seen or that you've earlier added to the deck, when that comes up, it's kind of like an extra bonus event. And believe me, bonus is not really a good thing in this context. In most cases. So it's really to me, it's a really interesting system. Most people, though, what they do is when they read the card, they read both halves. They look, well, we're going to eat some mushrooms, and then tomorrow it's going to give us the runs. But I think what Ignacy really wanted you to do was to just read the top half and then shuffle it in without knowing what's really going to happen. I don't know how I really feel about that. For me, half the fun was in having a bit of an idea of what I could expect would happen. And what really sells these events more than anything, just like the predictability of that negative event when it comes up, could still causes me to invest even more, because I'm like, oh no, when that comes up, I'm like, oh no, I should have prepared for this. I knew it was coming. Just like when you do something like take a morale hit, like you talked about in your example, Ricky, that is a lasting impact. It is going to stay with you the rest of the game. It is more than just a stat. It's like you have this morale phase, and now your morale is going to be one less, and this could cause the person who's in first place or not first place, the first player every round, which is always Ricky because he's always playing solo. You're gonna have to take an actual life hit, you know, like, and then that could end up in this sort of like circling the drain motion where your morale is so low that you're losing life, which is then in turn causing you to lose more morale. So it's just got a really interesting system that involves the persistent effects feel fair, feel in many cases interesting and predictable, and very much, I feel like when a morale hit happens to my group, I feel like in a way, I feel like I'm connected to it, you know, like, oh no, that thing that we built, it collapsed. Dang it. Oh, come on.
Oh,
It is. It's all about the story, and those positives always feel better too. You find a pot, you build a pot in Robinson, it's a treasure, and you're very proud of it. And you don't want to lose that thing. It means a lot to this game. It's just one
you're like, oh, your pot broke. No, that was the only way I was able to feed all of us. What are we gonna do? So you just introduced really well there, Ricky. Good transition here. You just talked about the way that you can craft things in this game. Now, this game, I'm going to make a couple of pretty big statements here. And the first one I want you to evaluate is, does this game have a tech tree? Does it have like technology tree like you'd expect from like a Civilization game? You know, tech tree is a pretty big buzzword that people really enjoy. I think Robinson Crusoe may have a tech tree. What do you feel?
Ignacy says it does. I'm not as convinced because it's not a very big tree, but yeah, you need a it may be one or two things deep. Okay, so
yeah, exactly. You're never going to go more than two usually, because sometimes you'll have to make the pot. Usually the pot's going to be probably pretty easy to make by itself, but then but once you make the pot, now you can use something using the pot technology. You can now craft something else. And there's a few of them that are present in every game. Where like, I think once you make a trap, then you can make, or what, I forget exactly. It's been a little while.
Like, if you want to dig a hole, you need a shovel, right? That's about as deep as it goes. But that's
literally as deep as it goes.
Yeah, exactly. But when you dig that hole, it's bloody good because things can fall in it, and when food drops in your hole, you build the shovel because you need a hole for things to fall in.
To catch things, exactly. So as the game is getting progressively more difficult because you've got these persisting negative effects, you've also got these persistent positive effects from things that you have crafted. So the crafting system involves you needing a certain amount of resources and then taking actions to craft resources, which also, like we've mentioned earlier, is still tied into this event system whereby when you craft, you have a chance of having an event happen. And that could, that event is largely tied to the action of crafting and feels fair, and it feels like this is what happens when I crafted. Sometimes you have no event. Sometimes you have an event. Sometimes the event is just a straight up negative thing with nothing else. Like I've occasionally drawn a card that's like, lose a morale. This card's gone. It's, oh, that was awful. Come on, Ignacy. Come on.
But this is what he's done. He said, I'm going to give you familiar concepts like action selection and workers that do stuff for you. But he's put a little twist on it. And because one of the big things about cooperative games is, like I said, they kind of hit you for no reason, that the game's playing you. Ignacy wants you to play the game. So your actions have consequences. So you've got event-driven, story-driven stuff. But when you play your workers, you can play, you've got 2 workers each player. You can play 1 worker or 2 workers on a task. So if I want to build a hole with that shovel, I can put both my workers on it, and I'm guaranteed to be successful. But if I only put
you don't
one
draw
worker,
any event cards, you don't hurt yourself. You guaranteed success. And what happens though? What if I'm gonna risk it? Sometimes you got to risk it for the biscuit.
Yeah.
What happens with one worker?
You want to do 2 things because the game's always tempting you. It's tempting you with those mushrooms, and it's tempting you with you don't have to build 1 thing. You could build 2 things. But if you try and do 2 things, you put 1 worker on 2 things, and then you have to roll the dice. And the other clever thing is that each set of dice have different probabilities. So you're more likely to succeed if you go exploring, but less likely to succeed if you go building. You're more likely to run into a gorilla if you go exploring. You're more likely to hit your finger with a hammer when you're building. So your actions and the player's decisions have direct consequences to the type of things that occur and the likelihood that those things will occur. So all the time, there's different layers of decision making that he's introduced in his design, which is another reason why I really love this game. Because it's not just place your worker, take a thing. It's place a worker or two workers, or do you want to risk it, or do you want to risk building, or do you want to risk exploring, or how do you want to play? It's great. There's lots of layers of decisions in the game.
And I'd almost forgotten how simple but effective that system is. You know, worker placement where everybody has two actions, but if you split them up, you're going to have to take extra risks to do that. Whereas if you double up and go to one spot, you're guaranteed to get it. Now, sometimes, you know, you end up with these good effects as a result of that event. You know, sometimes you have this good effect that happens right now, and you're just sitting there crossing your fingers that the event card doesn't come back up with that negative event later on. So it, like you said, trees, you know, all of this adds to keeping you, like you said, with the player in control of what happens in the game, and the tension ratcheting up because you know all these negative things that you could be incurring, but you're able to make decisions because, you know, if I'm going to go gathering, I'm rarely going to send two of my guys to go gathering. First of all, I'm basically only going to get food for myself. And that would be a pretty ridiculously selfish move. And the thing is, the gathering die is like the most likely of success. I think there's only like one fail on it. And that's because all you're doing is going to a place that you know and picking food that you know is there, which makes sense. I mean, you might come upon some sort of an event, but generally the events that you come upon tend to have positive effects now and negative effects later on. And some of them can even just be straight up positive, you know? But these can be really funny types of things though. Like you find eggs, you know, in a nest. And then guess what the event is when that comes back to haunt you? Mother bird knows you stole her eggs and is out for revenge. I mean, these are the types of stories that come, and these are the, like, I'm not used to enjoying story in a game. I'm used to, like you said, feeling like the game is playing me, and I disconnect from that and kind of detach from the story. Robinson Crusoe pulls me in with all these different decision trees I could make. So I have another point I want you to argue, and I think, you know, with a little bit of description, maybe TC could also interject a little bit here because he knows games that are like this. Robinson Crusoe, you know, if you interpret what the X's stand for, is a 4X game. You know, it's a cooperative game, obviously. You know, so you're not going to be necessarily looking to fight each other, but you are certainly looking to fight beasts that are there on the landscape, and you are definitely, exploration is a big part of this game. So do you think like 4X in terms of like explore, expand, is an explore, expand, exterminate, and exploit and exterminate, I think is what those called?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you got the 4.
Because you are also expanding though. Well, are you? I think I would call it expanding because you've got your sort of shelter, and you are adding things onto that shelter. Boy, I don't know. It's a tough call. I wonder what our guys in our chat are going to say.
I don't know. Can you eliminate someone in this game besides yourself?
I mean, like you're eliminating.
You can only eliminate.
I guess it depends on the scenario.
You can eliminate your allies like Friday and his dog.
Yes, because if a player dies, it's game over, right?
It's game over.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing to say, I think. There you go. Nice.
Yeah, I've tricked out my game. sorry. Go ahead.
The thing with Robinson is that it's not. I don't think it is, because the other layer that's on there is a scenario, and some scenarios exploration is everything, and in other scenarios exploration is nothing at all. And then in some scenarios, like you know, so in Castaways, the first mission, you're not worried about fighting beasts. You're not worried about fighting. Combat is not a thing. Then you play Cannibal Island, and weapon level and everything else is everything. And then if you play the Swiss Family Robinson, building stuff is everything. And then if you play the volcano island, then exploration is everything. So
yes, you've got to move.
All these scenarios will give you different games. So maybe as a campaign, like the Voyage of the Beagle was a campaign, and each different scenario gave you that different aspect of the game in a sequence of 5 scenarios as a whole. Then you experience the whole thing. But every time you play Robinson and play a different scenario, you're kind of playing a different game because your objectives are very different. So yeah, maybe at some level there's always that 4x, but I think not all. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 each time you play. So
I'm right there with you. So scenarios as well. Like we've talked about the different layers here in terms of events. We've talked about the beauty of the simple action selection system and the types of risks that it involves, the types of calculated risks, the way that it keeps players involved. But every scenario in this game seems to be focusing more largely on a specific part of the game that is present in other scenarios, but it is not nearly as much in the spotlight. What do you think about that? Like, do you tend to gravitate towards one scenario, or do you tend to enjoy playing each one for its own reasons?
I tend to. I like the.
If you don't say you enjoy hunting King Kong, I am going to turn this off now, because I just saw the last one is finding King Kong. That should absolutely be your favorite, because I want to play this now.
Dude, you've got not only King Kong. Oh my goodness, I'm really sorry here. I'll get you back on just in a second. I've got all these scenarios here. TC, not only is there King Kong, that you're talking about an extra scenario there that you can get on BGG. There is also, and I've got that King Kong right there. You have got a scenario that involves the historic traveling. Like it involves like this. What does this remind you of, TC? Look right here. What does this remind you of?
Henry Stan. That looks like Sherlock Holmes.
Exactly, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Except this is actually like the way that they've sort of put the events in. So it's made to look like a paper. This is one of the scenarios that you can like download, and it has you like in a totally separate story. I think I've just sold TC on this, by the way.
On the adventure, it says you have to capture King Kong and film him.
Yes.
I want to see how part 2 goes. Oh yeah. So bad.
Well, no, you're right, man. That's one. I don't even think I got a chance to play that one. I think I've only played the 6 in the base game, which just those 6 in the base game are just incredible. As you said, Castaways, when you start out, it's really about Castaways is like the Euro game where you're just like, all right, guys, we just got to get this many resources. That's it. We just got to get this many resources. Then you can go to the Cursed Island. And what is the Cursed Island has you like, it adds like a Halloween theme to it. The fog spreads around, and you're like sort of you're performing exorcisms in different areas, right?
It limits what you can see.
Mm-hmm. And then we've got, as you mentioned, Cannibal Island is very much like you are just fighting off cannibals constantly. The Robinson family, as you mentioned, is like the ultimate. Like it is the ultimate scenario. It involves you just trying to survive, and it is, believe it or not, the hardest of them all. In my opinion,
it is.
Having tried them, it is super hard.
Yeah. Because they're shutting down. All your resources are shutting down all the time, and then you get some annoying kids who want feeding, and it's quite hard. But if you buy the next printing from Portal, so the latest game. You'll get the King Kong scenario in the box. That's the 7th scenario. Then the 8th scenario was the Naturalist, which evolved into the Voyage of the Beagle. And I think what you showed us there, Joe, was some fan-made scenarios. I think that have been published through the Portal website.
Yeah, probably.
Could
this
be.
One.
But King Kong, I was part of the playtest and development team for King Kong scenario. So yeah, of course I love that one. So some of my ideas crept in there, very few, but yeah, that was great fun to do. and played loads. That is a really good scenario, and it's kind of akin to. It feels a little bit like which scenario?
This one that I've got right here, Ricky, I think maybe is the naturalist. I think this might be
right
because it says Ignacy on it. But so you were telling me though. Hold on for a second. What did you just say about King Kong? Did you have some sort of a hand in that?
Oh, amongst many people, I was only part of the playtest team and the development team of that scenario, so which was great fun, and also the Voyage of the Beagle too. So and that was a strange consequence of doing the video on Box of Delights was ingratiating myself with the designer a little bit and getting invited to join that team. Just yeah, being a fan of the game, it's great to play. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to, so I didn't contribute as much as I would have hoped. But yeah, that's great.
That's awesome, dude. I had no idea. So the thing about these scenarios, though, like, and you know this from your playtesting and whatnot, is that it's not just like, hey, here's the scenario. It's not just here's the goal. Like, there are setup changes, special rules, and more. I think my favorite thing about the scenario structure of the game is that you have tokens. Whenever you explore, you get to draw these amazing tokens. They're amazing. They're my favorite thing is Christmas. Every time I explore a tile, it's Christmas.
They are.
They're so good, and I love them. And there's a little expansion that comes with 6 new ones, and I'm such a fan of that. But the thing is, Ignacy built the scenarios straight into the exploration of the game. You have 4 tokens that will be different in each scenario depending on what the scenario is. So, like, when you explore in the Cannibal Island one, the things that you're going to be finding are a healing ointment, a machete, a blowpipe to help you. So all these things are basically going to help you fight or heal. So, I mean, it is definitely like all focused on combat, right? And that's he's built in these things that are thematically tied and mechanically tied to the specific scenario, let alone being part of a larger story-driven game with all these events that come up that you did that you described earlier. So the scenarios, like, holy crap, man, just holy crap.
Yeah, that's a neat little design trick because, you know, these discovery tokens, like you say, they're the Christmas presents, right? They're the things that drive you. So when you're playing, if you want to learn how to play this game better, do lots of exploring, get lots of discovery tokens, and they're kind of, for the most part, they're specific things like a treasure chest, or a rather cryptic goat, which in the latest printing it'll have goat written on it, so you know it's a goat. But when we picked up this version for the first time, it was just a bunch of symbols, and it was kind of surprised when it became a goat. But what Ignacy's clever idea was to put some kind of generic symbols on it that didn't mean anything on their own. And as Joe says, each scenario will say, well, in this scenario, in the King Kong scenario, this is a footprint of King Kong, and if you follow this footprint, it will help you explore. Or you know, well, maybe it's some food, or maybe it's some wood, and things that are gonna help you. And if you want another tip to get better, look at those scenarios, because when you're confronted with the game for the first time, the game's played there on that board that's in the middle, but it isn't entirely. Look at those scenario sheets, because, you know, there's different items that you can build that you can only build in those scenarios. Build those things because they're there for a reason. And look at those. Don't overlook those things. So yeah, every scenario, and because of the way he's built these generic tokens, he's been very clever at thinking ahead and saying, do you know what, I'm going to enhance this game. And maybe if there's one thing I'm sorry about, is we've not had more expansions. So when we saw the news this week that we're going to see some, and I think TC will like this, because I think that the next big expansion, which will follow the Beagle expansion, the Voyage of the Beagle, is the Lost City of Zed, which is a story of Lieutenant Colonel Percy Fawcett, who in 1925, I've written this down, so I'm reading this.
Sure.
He explored the Amazon rainforest, and there's going to be, I don't know what's going to be in there. That's all we kind of know. But Ignacy kind of hinted at a Cthulhu-esque theme in there.
TC.
Well, I really want to try the Beagle expansion, because I'm huge into biology.
Science, yeah, that's your job, dude.
Yeah,
it's beautifully presented as well, and it is really, yeah, Charles Darwin's Voyages, and yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. Like he even did like the scenarios in this one. In the original one, the scenarios were like cardstock. In this one, they're like, you know, like a thick cardboard that's actually bound. These are your scenarios. Like in one of them, you're trying to like collect plants and stuff, and then you're trying to like cage. You have to build cages, and Darwin ends up getting lost in one of them.
Yeah, and is that going to be reprinted, or is that just still the only? Like I know, like the expansion I saw Z-Man published, and is that the only?
I think the Voyage of the Beagle. Do you know anything about that, Ricky?
Did we lose him, Ricky?
Uh-oh.
Oh no!
It sounds like Murr also loves the Beagle expansion. He said that that he scored average on it. Apparently, you can even like play it multiple times. You know what? I'm not kidding, TC. Like when you said that you hadn't played this, I was like, "What, dude?"
I know. I have the rental.
No,
I'm playing it tonight. I'm playing it tonight.
No, I'm not trying to shame you here, TC. I'm not trying to shame you.
I am shamed. I am shamed.
I am excited. I'm excited that you are going to be playing it now because like how much you love Arkham Horror and stuff. Like I am so pumped to hear what you think. Like let's just
one of our guys
here. Let's do a little nugget here. Because one thing we didn't talk about yet, TC, just to make you salivate more, in the King Kong scenario that Ricky helped you develop, every time that an event card comes up from the deck that has a little icon, looks like a book on it, a scenario-specific event will happen. In this one, you've got a team of 9 different cast members, like part of your cast, like your filming crew. And whenever that happens, the leftmost filmmaker is killed by King Kong. Morale, and you have to put a black cube on top of him, and so these things are very bad. And then there is
guys. Oh, that looks nice. One of the guys in our group we play with loves co-ops, and I've been wanting to get it out to play, and you just made me rent it. So,
well,
I'm very curious.
They're also like specific. So the way that the cards are crafted, the way that you're crafting these things, there's also specific. Like technologies, as we were saying, that they're items that you can craft, and there are ones that are specific to the scenario. And this one, you've got a special trap that's for King Kong, and it costs 4 wood because that's a lot of wood to spend. And then you've also, not only that, but these items that you can craft are tied specifically to different terrain types on the board. So like the river terrain type allows you to build things that you would think, theoretically, I can now get rocks because I can go to the river, or, I can get rocks when I go to the mountains. There's mountains, there's plains, there's jungles, it's mountains, plains, rivers, and then like hills.
Rolling hills.
And then this beautiful tile right here, TC. Guess what this is?
Nice. Oh, volcano. Well, I know it's one of the scenarios was run from the volcano or something about volcano. So, yeah. And I think all those scenarios, it looks like it adds tremendously to the replayability of the game and the fact that you're going to play it a different way, which I really enjoy. Because usually you have to wait for expansions to hit from the change the way the game plays. This one's like right in the box, man.
I literally have never played anything more than base Robinson Crusoe, and I love it. Like, it is incredible to me how much game there is in there. I've played it like 15 times. It's one of the few games I've actually soloed, even though it does have like Ricky, I need your videos. By the way, it's good to have you back.
Hey, back, Ricky. Oh, Ricky, we've been carrying the torch without you.
I need your videos for games like this and like Mage Knight, because I'm one of those guys that, like, if I can get it down, I can get it down. But I have like a bad ADD when it comes to like heavy solo games. And I need somebody to like kind of like hold my hand, guide me through that process. And, just give you a little plug here. I use that not only for Robinson Crusoe, but also for Mage Knight, which have turned into 2 of my favorite games of all time, sir. So you're very instrumental in getting me into this as well.
Oh, man. You're a man of good taste. So that's yeah, I mean, yes. The Robinson Crusoe was it's good to do films for that are going to help people, because complex rules are difficult. But I mean, Robinson Crusoe has come under a lot of stick because of its rule book, and Paul Grogan from Gaming Rules has done the 4th edition. The new version that you see now is a lot more user friendly. I don't think it. I don't want to defend it too much. I don't want to come across as defensive, but I didn't find that the original rule book difficult. It was maybe a little naive, I think is a good word, because Ignacy came from, I think, a role-playing game background where it's maybe some of the stuff's like obvious, right? You're being like there's a rule in there that says you can do stuff at any time, but in Ignacy's version of the rules, it wasn't really at any time. If you've stumbled, you're going out, you're trying to gather some wood, and you come across a tiger, and the tiger attacks you. What you can't do is run back to camp, build a knife, and then run back and get surprised by the tiger again. But this time you got a knife. So there's this timing thing. You can't use items at any time, really. And that was kind of, Ignacy was kind of saying, well, role play it a little bit, you guys. Stop asking me the question. Just play the game, right? But board gamers aren't like that. They aren't all like that. And maybe I'm a little bit like that. But we want things in black and white, and everything's strict. And you tell me when I can do this thing, otherwise I'm going to do it. If I can boil my broth in a chocolate teapot, and the rules don't tell me I can't, then I'm going to do it. So this new rule book,
you might find the pot. Like when you're exploring, sometimes you actually do find items. And it's like, oh, well, great, I've got the pot now. That means that I can keep my food, and I don't have to. I can just role play it here and fudge the rules, and that's definitely. This is one of those games that goes to such a deep level strategically that I wouldn't accept that either. I wouldn't have accepted Ignacy's defense. Ignacy's, oh, just play it the way that you think it would be played. It's like, no, dude. Like, you've made these mechanisms here. What do you want me? What do you want done?
Yeah. But
so the expansion we've talked a little bit about here. The expansion, the Beagle. What other things? So it adds a scenario. The biggest thing is a campaign where you work through from 1 through 5. And once you get done, as we've seen in our comments here, once you get done with scenario 5, you actually get like a rating, right? Your entire group gets like a rating based on how well you did. It sounds like
it's not like Sherlock Holmes, is it, where he just tells you you're a douchebag.
Yeah, I mean, you can play those 5 scenarios standalone if you wish as well. I mean, when we were developing, I played a very small part. I don't want to take too much credit, but one of the things that was talked about is how do we capture your state between scenarios so you can pick up. You play one game, you pack away, and then you can unwrap it again. So, and it came up with you've got a little chart on the back of the book where you can record all stuff. But anyway, at different points it was like, do we ask people to take photographs of this, or how? But yeah, play it in a campaign, or you can play them standalone, and you can kind of push your characters on a little bit and start a campaign on its own. But yeah, it's all about Darwin and his journey on the Beagle, this Royal Navy ship that went out in 1839. This is before Origin of Species, so this is his voyage where so you're doing that, TC. If you start that first thing, you're going to be collecting plant and animal specimens, building cages to put them in, and it's all of its time. And you get a special board with the cabin of Darwin's cabin with where you can store the stuff that you've collected. There you go. You'll get a Darwin character, so you'll get a character sheet like this, so you can play Darwin. The missionary, I can't remember now which bits have come from which expansion. There's so many little extra bonus stuff, but there's a missionary character as well. I think that was in the Beagle.
Did the Beagle, there's a little Darwin figure, right? Isn't there like one that's actually like, it comes with an extra piece that you're supposed to only play with as Darwin? I'm trying to find it here. Oh, no. Here he is. Here's Darwin. There he is. He's a little, he's a token. And you actually have multiple ones. You have Darwin and his 2 clones. Right?
There you go. Rock on. Yeah.
I think they're supposed to represent like his actions, because like there's special actions that only Darwin can take, and they can do things like adding special bonuses that would be thematically tied to what his role is in everything. I think I have mine divided up. If you have any questions, I think I have it divided up. You know, like you got cages and barrels, and so I mean, there's definitely some things that are specific for expansion. And then also it also added, if I'm not mistaken, an extra like role, because there's variable players in this game, and of course it adds Charles Darwin himself, which this is his special board. But you've also got some extra things as well.
Yeah, you got.
What's really cool?
You got the horse.
Go ahead.
You got the horse that you can bring with you. That's an extra, like a. You know, you had the dog, and then you had Friday. You got the horse now as well, and there's a parrot and a lookout and a surgeon, and there's these other characters that can be played.
So in that game, what you're doing is you're trying to capture beasts and put them in cages. And generally what you're doing when you're hunting in the game, because the game involves hunting, you're going to be capturing beasts and eating them. And every beast is going to have a certain level of like strength and whatnot. So what I think is really cool, though, is that sometimes these beasts will actually have thematic, like every beast is thematically tied to what it actually is. Like the what is it here? I've got the dodo bird, and this is my favorite. I think this is from one of the expansions. TC, if this doesn't sell you on the game, if we haven't already sold you, this will. When you find the dodo bird, you kill it, and then it is the last dodo bird on Earth. So all players have to discard a one of the motivation tokens, whatever they're called, the
determination,
the little tokens.
Determination
tokens. Everybody loses determination when you make the dodos go extinct.
Well, my biggest question is, rumor, this is not factual, but or maybe it is that one of the I think it was the captain, was a crew member who would just egg Darwin on, who was a creationist. He was like, yeah, blah, you can see all this stuff, and it actually made him go out and look for not the natural selection as a primary means of determining speciation. I was just wondering if that was that idiot was in there or not, just egging Darwin on. As I would so be into it at that point. Be like, can we throw this guy overboard? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, there's lots of little scenarios in there. So like say it starts with a very familiar Robinson game, and then as the scenarios move on, I think it's scenario 3 that has you island hopping as well, and you've got sea creatures that are coming up to take on the ship, and yeah, so it changes the thing up. So I'm interested to see what they're going to come up with this Lost City of Zed. Maybe a little bit Lost World, Conan Doyle-ish, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe it is this Cthulhu idea, or giant spiders, or who knows? It'll be interesting to see what they bring.
I'm right behind it though, man. I think that going deeper into Robinson Crusoe is going to be much more successful for Ignacy than trying to sail Robinson Crusoe to Mars.
Well, Ignacy does do some really good expansions to his games, so it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I still play Imperial Settlers to this day just because of all the and I'm always looking forward to new expansions coming out with that. And Cry Havoc has a pretty interesting come out. So yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, he's invested in it and he does support his game, so that's very encouraging.
Certainly.
Definitely.
And we didn't even talk about this, man. There's so many bits in this game. There's so many things. Like you've got an entire small deck. Like I want to say there's about 8 to 10 cards in it, and I think you even add some more. I guess there's like 8 cards here that are extra special. Like in addition to choosing a character, you're gonna each, depending on how many players, play with a certain amount of like items that you start with, like the Bible or the empty bottle or a flask of rum, which can let you heal and stuff. So I mean, every game is going to be very different, and it's all going to be tied very much into the theme, and just so much beautiful replayability.
Yeah, I guess that's one thing that I found maybe was a little strange, was the whole Robinson Crusoe thing, because this is a cursed island, so there's this mystery deck where you've got mysterious stuff in there, and like some of the scenarios aren't Robinson at all. The only commonalities. We start stranded on an island, but then there are lots of overlaps. I think, you know, obviously, I wonder how Robinson ended up being the main person associated with the title of the game. But I mean, obviously, things like the starting items that you mentioned there, Joe, because I picked up I've never read Robinson Crusoe, but I started reading last night just to get a little bit of an idea before we chatted. But you know, Robinson Crusoe in the book, in Daniel Defoe's book, he took like 12 trips out to the ship, and he brought back boatloads of stuff. Ignacy was cruel with that. He gave you like 1 or 2 things. You know, you can go and get some food.
You don't even have a shelter. You have nowhere to stay. Like, you throw players into this, and you're literally taking damage at the end of the first round, and there's like nothing that you can do to stop it. You can't, like, unless you explore and happen to find like the cave that's like the mountain tile that has the shelter, the pre-built shelter in it, because it's like you found a cave. Unless you find that, you are going to have to make camp without a roof. Without a roof, you take damage every single night because you are cold.
Yeah, it's a painful experience, but that's it. You've got to remember to play the scenario, and that's where it's neat, because you've got to be prepared to take that damage early and think about, you know, all right, you've got to go and chase King Kong and build some traps for him, but build a roof, you know, get that pot, because you need that pot.
You're still making the pot. You're still digging the hole.
Still make the pot. Still do that stuff, because and then only when you're happy and you've got a nice little home, then go chase after the big gorilla. But it's and maybe that's it. That's what it's about. Is that we've arrived on a desert island and we've got to survive, and every time you play, you go in with that mindset, and the game really delivers that theme, no matter which scenario you're playing. But it is like I say, a little unusual that we have the Robinson title, I think, still, because we're on. Although his was the Island of Despair, I think, Robinson, but Ignacy's is the Cursed Island, and maybe the Island of Despair would have been, because it feels that way sometimes.
Well, I think what's cool about you mentioned the Cursed Island, and I've got those cards right here, but there's like, you know, there are 3 different types of cards. You've got your traps, your animals, or, you know, like some sort of monsters, and then the actual treasures. And it's not just you like shuffling the deck and then seeing what you get, you know. Occasionally you'll do that. I think there's a scenario where you actually are flipping up cards, and whatever you see is what you get. Generally what you're doing is you keep on flipping up cards until you see one that has the icon that is specific to whatever you're looking for. So like, you know, you might be like, okay, you're looking for treasure. So that way, if I flip up, you know, a treasure, I get it. But if I flip up spiders, then I don't have to deal with them, because this is a treasure. This isn't, you know, this isn't that random. So in some ways it does kind of, he even allows you to have more control over that in many scenarios. But then there are ones where you do just come right off the top of the deck. So, I mean, it definitely, like, the pieces here are used in a lot of innovative ways, is what I would take away from that.
And some cruel ways too. I mean, this is typical of Ignacy's humor. You find some treasure, right? You spot an unobtrusive chest hidden in the shadows. You come closer and open it. It's full of gold coins. And then the game mechanic says, unfortunately, gold has no use on the island. It does nothing. And that's
oh man!
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for my
yes. Thanks, Ignacy. Oh man!
But that's the thing I feel about this. This game is full of Ignacy's character, and when you're reading that old rule book, and when you're reading some of the strangely worded cards in the original Portal game, it feels like you're sitting in the room with Ignacy playing his game. And it's full of character and charm, and yeah, it's definitely his game. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you come from a much more, like, by knowing the individual, you can tell us that. And I mean, you saying that though makes me think about how this game has its own personality, and I'd never thought to associate that with Ignacy himself. But now that you mention it, I mean, yeah, this is a distinct experience of which there is nothing like it in board games.
Yes, definitely, and I think that's what makes it stand out as a design, is that it is its own thing, and it's not trying to be like, mean, why design a game that's like 100 other games? If you want to be a designer, design something you've never seen before. Now, that's something I took away when I tried to design my game, was let's build something that no one's done before. You know, we're not just trying to sell to as many people as possible. We want to build the game we want to build, and this really does feel like you know, a work of love when he built this game, and I'm sure he's proud of it every day, and still. And it's, I'm really glad to see that they're investing in some expansion materials too.
Man,
and so much. And
I was gonna say every one of his games has such a personality to it.
yeah,
I mean, it's like I hate keeping like Imperial Settlers, but every time I play that, I just stare at the cards and go, "Oh, it's so cute! It's so cute."
Yeah, he's got some great artists working for them as well, bringing in that theme. Yeah, and when I think it was when that was released in the States at Gen Con, I know everyone was. When was it? I'm guessing 2015, something like that. You know, Settlers used to be Settlers of Catan, but that year Settlers was Imperial Settlers. You know, everyone was playing it and loving it, and yeah, it's really, really great designs coming from that that house. It's really good to see. Yeah,
definitely. Well,
it was a little bit easier than maybe a little easier than Robinson as well, and also, you know, doing his thing for the solo gamers, which is a big thing these days. So Imperial Settlers delivered that as well.
Yeah,
and even with the master set on 51st State, it brought that way to play solo as well. So that's really good to see. It's important. You know, that's something that helped me engage in the hobby was, you know, being able to enjoy these games alone. I have a game group now. I play with when I get a chance with the guys who are the Ragnar brothers. They do a lot of wonderful games. You'll see them on Kickstarter too. I play in a game group with them, and they love Euro games and the, you know, different kind of game. I keep threatening to bring Robinson
Congo.
DR
guys?
Congo, yeah, they did that. That's right. I keep threatening to bring Robinson as well, but I'm not sure they're ready for it. But, yeah, it's. But yeah, you know, every iteration of the game that comes up, and like this great version is great for new people to pick up. It's got more content in, but it does feel like the gloss that's been put on has just taken a little of Ignacy's character away. But so I'm proud to keep my original version. With
all right, well, I'm proud to
typos
keep mine now too. Now that you've said that, thank you very much for validating this copy, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. You just saved me like $50.
I'll just take a copy I can get my hands on.
Yeah. So I would say what's really funny that you'd mentioned is that taking some of Ignacy's personality out, when he did this hilarious comparison, like a pictographic comparison, where he took an aspect of the original game and showed how the new edition was going to change it. And he showed a picture of the original rule book, and underneath it says, "Doesn't teach you the game." And then the picture of the new rule book, and it says, "Actually teaches you the game."
It does, and now he's got the wonderful Rodney Smith working with him on rules videos as well. So you don't even need my old ones, and watch Rodney's, because the new game has changed some of the rules. So some of those points of clarification have been cleared up in the new version as well. So yeah, if you're going to play new, pick up the new version. It's got all the good stuff. You know, we play with cubes. I think you say you pimped yours out, Joe. We got all these little cubes, but the new version, I have the new. It's one of the very few games I got both versions of. But the new version has little bananas for food and little blocks of, you know, wood and little.
It's basically the same things that came. They had an upgrade pack that was on the Portal Game website that I bought that had all. It came with every single little bitty promo and expansion that had come out for the game. It came with, like, I want to say it came with both of the scenarios, maybe the King Kong and then the Naturalist, or whatever that one's actually called, the Dr. Livingston. And then it also comes with like this a couple little expansions of cards. One of them is like personalities, and I don't find that I like playing with those, because those kind of like are the type of thing like you have to complain, like the game, you know, like he's definitely added a little fan expansion like that. That's kind of. That isn't I'm not that interested in. But then he's got one that's like The beach that you land on is a lot more complex than just a single tile. You can play with that. It comes with an extra version of your solo game dog that's called the hunting dog. There's a lot of little bits here and there, the extra little things here, the little discovery tokens, and then it also comes with all the upgraded little meeples too. And that, I think, basically the new edition just comes with that, so you don't have to worry. You know, like you got little bread tokens, and I still have my original cubes, so I've still got them right here. So I still have them, at least. You know, I've hung on to them, but there's definitely some really good stuff. Oh, and my favorite part is that beast expansion. You do not get the dodo bird unless you get that little beast upgrade pack, which I think comes with seven more beasts that get shuffled in. A lot of times in a game like this, with all that extra content, and it's just like, oh, you just add that to this deck, add that to this deck. A lot of times I get, like, as a Euro gamer, I'm like, ooh, things are diluted now. I'm not going to get the things I need, you know. But here it's like, no, it's about that story. These things that come up are just more like, it's cool, it's interesting. They have thematic basis for how they work, and I'm all about the way that everything gets shuffled in this game.
The only thing I think that's probably not helped is with the different versions, they've changed some of the card backs. So it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate. So with the Beagle expansion, new cards were added only to those decks that shared components. So the Beagle expansion is compatible with both because it only adds to the decks it can add to. So I don't know whether that's something that's going to limit what they can do, or whether they'll only build on the new version, or whether it will stand alongside both this version and the old version. We'll see. I know the other thing that he mentioned was a companion app to do that thing of only giving you the top and not the bottom. So like you see in First Martians. I've not played it First Martians, but I think that there's talk of a companion app as well to go with Robinson Crusoe.
It might be for the better that you've not played that, because in our chat here, Daniel has mentioned that all of the things that Vlada told Ignacy to change that made Robinson Crusoe so good, he basically reverted to in First Martians. That was Daniel's theory on it. Because,
okay.
Yeah, and Daniel's one of those, like you. He doesn't buy many games, and I know that when he got First Martians, I think it was a pretty big disappointment in some ways. So I still haven't played my copy, so I can't really comment from myself. But it's definitely as a game system made people who expected it to be Robinson Crusoe set on Mars. Those people do not enjoy, especially the way that it has a companion app that feels very much like it could have been an extra added thing, but they don't come with cards in the game, so you have to have the app. It's not like you can choose to have the app. It just is something that folks aren't very happy about. That it's the same mechanism that you see in Robinson Crusoe that Robinson Crusoe did with cards. The only difference is that you don't have physical cards. Now you've just got electronic cards. And as Ricky was saying before we started recording, that makes you a bit paranoid.
I didn't say those words, but okay.
Well, you said I don't want the game to screw me over.
No, exactly. And from a designer's point of view, I want to see all the nuts and bolts. I want to see that things, and I want to cheat, and I want to read this. So I want to read the text that app's hiding from me. Yeah, I can't see under the bonnet of an app. I don't know what's going on, and that's one of the attractions of board games. We can see all the machinery of the game working. We can't see that in an app.
Is it under? But hold on though. Let me take that metaphor here. Is it seeing under the bonnet, or is it more like seeing up the skirt? Ignacy thought, yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying though, like that. Maybe that's something that Ignacy thought. Oh, people are always peeking here, and they're cheating. Yeah. Just to play the other side of the card there. I'm just playing the bottom half of the card, Ricky.
Well, maybe that is something he learned from Vlada, because I think Vlada said to him, when you're designing the game, you're the puppeteer. You're the person in control, the designer. And I feel that when I'm playing Robinson too, is that Ignacy's always there in the background controlling this game. So maybe that is trying to grab more control back from letting the players only do what you want them to do. Yeah, maybe apps do that more, but I don't know.
I'm actually my own personal opinion is I'm with you on this, Ricky. I was just playing devil's advocate.
All right, thank you.
I like to have the cards there too. I think if you're going to add the app, you also need to have it possibly play with cards. I think that, you know, making it so that you need to have that app is, yeah, problematic. And I think, like, you know, to take a line from Vlada here, to take a hint from Vlada, when he made an app companion a part of his games, like specifically from Czech Games Edition, they have one that he's only a developer, not, you know, like not like a designer, but that's Alchemists. They went to painstaking lengths to make it so that you can play that with just without an app. And the app is much, much better because you have to have like an uninvolved third party that just basically runs the game. And that's something nobody would ever really want to do. But they give you all these extra pieces just for that. Just like in Space Alert, even the new copies of Space Alert that have this app that's just amazing to run the disc of the game, it still comes with that disc. And the app just basically takes what's on the disc and blows it up to, you know, like you can have everything is totally random. You know, there's infinite replayability. You never get to the point where you memorize exactly what's on the tracks, but he still includes the disc in there just in case, you know, and that still is, you know, it's just like the app is just today's technology. And as I'm reminded by my coworkers that are older teachers, back in the day, VHS was what you studied when you took a technology class in college. It was about projectors and overhead markers and stuff like that. That was the technology class. So it's like it's okay if it's technology that's from the 90s, but if it's technology that's from the 2000s, oh no, we got to make sure we keep people who are still stuck in the 90s able to play this game.
Yeah, absolutely. But saying that though, I think that this digital crossover is a great thing for the industry because we're piggybacking a massive market, and if you can grab people from the video game industry and get them working in board games, it's going to be massive for the industry. And this is what we're starting to see. It's grabbing that little corner of their market as well. So come look at what we do with this cardboard and stuff, and you entice them with the app, and yeah, you're creating a market by dipping into the video game industry. And there's a lot of similarities between the way you build rule sets and you build computer games, right? So,
well, that's where Vlada comes from. He was a developer, right? A programmer, too. And that's, and I think, honestly, I think that Vlada, in a lot of ways, because a lot of the thematic things people excuse as thematic in a board game. And I'm gonna stab right here at the heart, TC, like
stab
Arkham Horror, like people make excuses, you know, like in RPGs where you roll dice and things. If you had that same sort of thing in a video game where like all of the things that you're doing right are still subject to a dice roll that is literally like, you know, a 1 through 20 with huge differences between a 1 and a 20, you know, like that's not acceptable in video games. People would not accept that. You know, there's not a video game out there that would, you know, if Call of Duty involved the amount of damage you do is a 1 through 20. No, the amount of damage you do is like a 75 through a 90. You know, you know, the range is much lower. Yes, there's a bit of randomness, but it's never like the same that is excused in board games. And I think that because Vlada comes from that video game background, he knows like what gamers want. And as a gamer who wants solid mechanisms, you can't have that, like, as you said, the puppet master has to maintain that level of control. He can't just be like, all right, guys, no strings attached, walk on your own, do what you want. No, he's got to still keep his hands in it to make sure that it's balanced and to make sure that things are, you know, like make sense, and it has to kind of be in control of that experience.
This is not the time to argue that point, Joe. I'll let you have it.
I win. That's right. I just won. But
we only got another 15 minutes before he has to go. I'm not going to dive into that. I will just say
I'm going to make a comparison here. This is like me drawing an event card that says you win now, and it's going to say no positive effect. Like, congratulations, you have won this argument. No positive effect. However, it gets shuffled into the long views event deck. When it comes up later on, TC is just going to jump on me, and he's going to go straight for the throat.
Well, I just remember playing Final Fantasy Kings back in the day, and that was all random. If you didn't have enough stites on those rules, you would eat it, go up against the last Sephiroth, and you would just eat it big time. But anyway, the question I wanted to ask, Ricky, here we have 15 minutes left here, is I've noticed next to your head, you've got Navajo Wars, you've got Comancheria, and I see Arkham Horror, the card game. Now, I have not played Robinson Crusoe. How would you rate that game right there? Robinson Crusoe solo game next to those games next to your head.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I did a top 100 solo games in 2015. I did it in 2016, the beginning of 2016. Robinson Crusoe was number 3 on my list of 100 solo games. Since then, these other titles have come along.
I've just noticed them there. It's pretty.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, Comancheria, Navajo Wars, there's solo games, and they give me something completely. I love those games. It's Joel Topham was talking about how solo games are like novels, but you're a player in the story, and you're kind of reading them from the inside out. And that's what those games deliver. Robinson Crusoe is a cooperative game, and it's very much a storytelling game. Yeah, I've always found it hard to say which ones you prefer. There's different games for different times, and yeah, Robinson's probably still my number 1 cooperative game. No, it is. It's not probably. It is.
How far have you fallen down the Arkham Horror rabbit hole, the card game? Have you bought everything for it? Have you bought 2 core sets?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I stopped. and I have you know what? You can tell how far I've got because I still have the first box. I've got the base game, and then the next expansion is still in its shrink. So it's still in its shrink. So
okay.
I've not gone far. Gone far.
We tripped on that one big. Yeah, that spiraled out of control financially pretty quickly.
I like to play the same game over and over and over. So I've played the first story when you're in the house and you start in the study, and I've played that. So you're supposed to play that once. I just keep playing that one.
Do you mess with the difficulty level, or do you just play it over and over?
I just like to pull things apart and see how they work. And
and also, before we go, I see you have this game called Game of Dracula. That looks amazing. Yeah. It's like this old.
This is from. Here we go. This is from my childhood.
Oh, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. That looks.
Yeah. This is fun. Do you know what? This is funny because this is a crummy old game from the 70s or 70s or something. But there's this little AI-driven Dracula. And I'm looking, and even when I play it now, I got it out for my kids, and I'm like, hey, this is quite a clever mechanism, how this thing is controlled. And I'm like thinking, I could use that today. This is from a long time ago. Yeah, there's lots of games up here, but yeah, I like to pull the designs apart, and that you'll see me. I've not done a lot of videos recently because I've been busy with my other things, but I'm not like. You guys are producing stuff all the time, but I have a long space between because I kind of get involved in a game, and then I get to know it, and then I'll say, right, it's time to do a video. So I keep promising to do Navajo Wars. It's a really good story.
Yeah, Navajo Wars really needs like a way to play it, because it took me several times of just going, okay, let's reset it. Yeah, okay, reset it.
Right. But once you get past it, it's really good. Really good.
Yeah.
Once you get past the rules.
When I heard you say that, Ricky, I thought you have a very specific skill set, kind of like Liam Neeson in the movie Taken. You got a very specific skill set.
I will set you up. Game. I will train
for this podcast. Absolutely perfectly. Like, that is exactly what we are looking for on the long view. You've been able to talk about every conceivable angle of Robinson Crusoe, and you knew it back and front. Like, I only knew parts of this game, but every little bit there, that every little kernel of an idea that I had barely formed in my head, you were able to expand upon, and that was amazing. And I'm excited that we've got this relationship now, and I'm expecting that we will continue, because I'm just gonna like I'm gonna just wait for you to like anytime that you say something that's like, hey, this is a really good game, I'll be like, all right, long view time. Careful, man.
You got
I'm like,
you guys
controlling your feeds.
You've already done Navajo Wars though, so there you go.
Yeah, we're gonna do Game of Dracula next.
I can give you the ins and outs of that. Yeah, where is Jeff? Does he appear yet? Does he come on at any moment?
Oh, you missed out on the last one we did that I'm getting ready to post, where he screwed up a rule for Terraforming Mars. He's been playing wrong for like the past 3,000 games. He was a developer there. Right now, Jeff is actually over there on your side of the Atlantic at Essen with Carmen from Game Surplus. So, yeah. And me and TC have been back here. This is now the 4th thing that TC and I have recorded this week. Yeah, including my cameo on his thing. Yeah.
Oh, you're cameo, dude. You're like straight up host. Like, TC and I have been together on airtime for like, what is it, 8 hours now? I think at this point we can sign up. I mean, Portland's pretty forward thinking, right? In the state of Oregon, I think we can officially apply for a marriage.
Oh God.
License.
It would just be the bickering couple. I'd bring out dice and you'd slap them out of my hand.
Yeah. Just have to ask our wives. Let's ask Carissa and Caroline whether or not we can. Yeah, and it would be. Me and TC are definitely the odd couple, man.
It's hilarious. It's so funny.
Maybe you see that, Ricky, but TC brings an angle that I love having, especially with his love for Arkham Horror. Like, and his position at, like, I feel like I've been trying to sell him on this, because it's like, TC, this is a game that works for the both of us. This can be something we both like.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looks like you're coming out of one of those portals, TC.
Yeah.
You're in your picture right now.
I think I've gotten just successfully to dive into Legend of the Five Rings. So if Robinson Crusoe goes well, if it goes with my the play tonight, I can almost guarantee you that some of the store credit I got at my store is going to be going towards this. But it's going to have to fight out Pandemic Season 2 right now.
It's tough to play your first time, though, dude. Make sure that somebody knows the game well. Watch. If you have Ricky's version, if you have the old version, watch Ricky's video. If you have the new version, watch Rodney's video. Watch it played. Make sure you are prepared for a difficult learning experience in a game that just is packed with theme. But that first game can be a make or break, dude. Make sure you do your diligence. Do your homework.
Well, I'm used to co-op smacking me down and brutalizing me the first time, so that would just encourage me to play it more.
And don't get hooked up on the rules. Don't interrupt the game to go spend hours looking for the rule book. Just do what Ignacy says. Just make it happen.
No, I'm sure we will.
Roleplay, dude. Yeah. And by the way,
we got Carissa for that. She'll help us roleplay for certain.
Murr has done a little bit of homework for your sake, TC. You can get a copy of Game of Dracula for only $20 on the BGG marketplace.
Sweet, that's a better deal than I saw for the Keep for $50.
If you can't find it when you're on your lunch break Goodwill runs.
Hey, I found a working copy of Stop Thief with that electronic device that still worked after I don't know how many years that thing was in the box. I'm excited to try that. So everyone's talking about, ooh, we got the new version for Restoration Games. Like, nah, I got this old big box that makes weird noises.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just thinking an addendum to that joke earlier about us being married, TC. Murr, I think, would be considered our witness because he's been here for like all these episodes too. He's been here for so many episodes, and not only that, but he's been patient as we've been a little bit late with our recording time. So appreciate Murr, and there's been a couple of people whose names I'm not 100% familiar with, but I do see your screen names. And of course, Daniel is there in our chat. It has been awesome to have you guys on our live chat. At this time, I think we've talked quite a bit about Robinson Crusoe, and I'm actually to the point where I'm 7 minutes over. But I promised you something, Ricky, and that is that you, sir, I'd like you to just please tell us, where can we find your game? Tell us a little bit about what you do. What is Box of Delights? And then also specifically your Kickstarter game, because I do know that one of the individuals in our chat here said he was a Kickstarter backer and is looking forward to it coming in soon. So I'll let you take it from here, sir.
Sweet, thanks. Well, that's good to hear, because we got more backers than I ever imagined we would get. But it's a game I've been working on. Thank you. It's been. I'm only the designer. This is Victory Point Games' game, but I took it to Victory Point Games because I love their games and I thought they'd love my game. It's something I've been working on since I started Box of Delights, really. It's always been when I was a kid, I was always designing my own little games, but inspired by things like Game of Dracula, obviously. But Renegade is the game. It finished on Kickstarter in the summer, and it should be hitting the shelves. February was what it said on the Kickstarter. The guys are, it was signed, sealed, delivered. It was ready to go, so it's just going to hit the printers as soon as the Kickstarter finished. And then it was a game that I designed for me and the games I like to play, and inspired by games like Pandemic and Mage Knight, and less so Robinson Crusoe. Is not particularly story driven. It's got a deck building element in there, which Robinson Crusoe has too. The Dominion left its mark on a lot of us, but it's a thematic wise. You're hackers in a cyberpunk future. It has a modular board. The modular board is different servers that form a network. And you're going to be using cards, which are commands in your hand that are like computer commands to hack into this server. And it's very much an abstract-looking board. It's moving pieces around and commanding this programs, contaminants on that. You're the bad guys in this game. You're infecting with viruses and so on, using your cards as commands. So you're remote from this thing, and you have an avatar which goes into this network, and you move it around using your cards, and you'll be facing lots of different countermeasures. The computer that you're fighting is going to be throwing stuff at you. Your renegade leaders, the people who are giving you this mission to hack, are giving you objectives to fulfill in this world where you're trying to bring down these supermassive computers. A term I coined for the game. So yeah, it's very much a deck building with abstract route building, area control, lots of new stuff. So lots of familiar ideas, but it's very much and the game experience is very much unlike anything else. And hopefully people will enjoy that. So yeah, I can't wait for people to get hold of it. I'm nervous about people getting hold of it, and hopefully a few people will enjoy it. So yeah, that's Renegade, and you can pre-order from Victory Point Games website and look out for it early next year. I was hoping it was going to be Essen, but hey, not this year.
Well, it's still going to be, your estimated delivery isn't even until February, so it sounds like you're talking about it coming in early next year. So that's awesome. It looks like a great production, and all the different press comments sound really interesting. It sounds like, exactly what we talked about with Robinson Crusoe, which is that it never leaves you feeling like you lost due to sheer dumb luck. So that's
right.
It looks like a really cool game.
Victory Point Games are real good. I mean, they've not done any kind of deck building games before like this. It's not strictly deck building, but they got a developer called Tyler Ander who did the Resident Evil deck building game. He did that, and he helped me put it, make it something that was saleable. Clark Miller did the artwork, and you've seen him do lots of Victory Point games. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the way it's turned out, and the way they've realized my imaginings is brilliant. They're really good to work with because they wanted it to be my game, even though it's their game. They wanted it to be something awesome. that I said, this is the way it should be. Really great experience, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And it's made the last few years of just building an audience and getting to know the industry worthwhile is fulfilling that dream. And that was what Box of Delights was a little bit about, really. It was, getting to know the industry and learn about games and understand the audience for games. And yeah, so it's kind of reached that climax. Well, who knows what I'll do next? I may do another. I've got lots of ideas. We'll see.
You could always set Renegade on Mars, And
Yeah.
let's start with expansions first, and and then we can work our way up from there.
We'll see how it goes, but I mean, it's the type of game that will translate digitally really, really well. So we'll see.
That's awesome, dude.
See what happens.
Yeah, I like
And thank
Victory
you for
Point
having me.
games a lot. Victory Points
Oh,
games
yeah,
are some
yeah.
pretty cool stuff. Like I know a lot of people don't like it, but I really enjoyed Healthy Heart Hospital. That was nothing like I've ever played before. So I always like it when you have to pick those up because you just never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan Emmerich's got an eye for games that he thinks are the kind of games he wants to play, and that I think is what makes them. That's why I took it to them, because it was the kind of game I thought they would enjoy, and they brought so much to it, So it was a really good experience. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy to hear that you had a positive experience with that, and this has been an excellent experience here having you on, Ricky. I mean, just picking your brain is something I think I could do all night. And
you guys have been. I've enjoyed listening to you guys over the last few months, and you've picked up the baton and really given the show, and you've got lots of credibility with all your background from what you've done before. So well done.
I just interject my own useless opinion.
You know what? I'm going to take it as a compliment here. That means an awful lot to me, Ricky, especially coming from you, from somebody who's very instrumental in getting me involved. So it's great having you on, and like I said, man, with knowing what you look for in games, the long view is you fit in here like one of them round pegs.
Oh God, round peg in my square hole.
that's UTC. Anyway, well, thank you so much to everybody who's tuned in, and thanks for listening to everybody who's checking it out on the podcast when it releases on iTunes and whatnot. It's been a great week also for us, TC. After 4 episodes, I don't feel like I want to strangle you through the internet, so that's pretty sweet.
Sweet. Maybe I just haven't doing my job. Maybe I'm just tired. I don't know.
We need to do this all the time. Yeah, we'll just do a 1 week every 2 months where we do all the recording for the long views. So that way TC doesn't have enough energy to cause me.
Like, you win, whatever. You win. Just keep moving. Move along. Nothing to see here.
Telling you, man, it's going to come back to bite me.
Hey,
anyway,
it's kind of like a marriage, isn't it?
Well, that's this episode of The Long View of Robinson Crusoe. Thank you very much to our special, very much an expert. Now, that's coming from me, Ricky. You don't have to say you're an expert. I will say you're an expert on this game and in games in general. Thank you for joining us. It has been so great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Catch us next time on The Long View.
Sweet. And